Hey, deserving listeners, Love is Blind. Let's check it out.
I felt like you've been a little clingy.
Clingy? You started causing these problems the second you saw Jess's picture.
Do you think that he would want to see me?
Yeah.
Oh.
We will probably meet again at some point.
We'll see each other again.
Okay, so I'm watching the recap. The new episodes are out today, so I'm watching them. And sometimes they include things in the recap that they didn't actually show. But either way, apparently in the pods, Sarah and Jeramey said maybe we'll see each other. And then Jeramey says, oh, we'll definitely see each other. What does that mean? In light of where this ends up, looks more suspicious than it might have been speculated at the time. So, yeah.
Yeah. Are you ready?
You're my ball.
I like how even the pets get their own introduction. Layla.
Went out with a couple of the guys. I was on my way out, found out that there's this girl that I was in kind of like a love triangle with. I found out that she was going to be out, so I was like, I'll deal with it, whatever happens. Then she and I ended up getting into a conversation, and then we ended up talking through a good part of the night. Nothing, inappropriate happened.
Jeramey is telling his mom and the dog that story that he told Laura, and I'm curious, sometimes when people are in the moment of confrontation, they will present a certain way because they are shutting down, or they're defensive, or they're confused, or they're distressed. And then later we'll hear a more human response. So let's hope for that.
Anything like that. But then it turned out to be like 4:30 in the morning at that point, and she was going to get an Uber. And I was like, how far away do you live? She was like 8 minutes away. So I was like, cool, I'll just drive you home. No big deal, whatever.
Okay, so we didn't hear that detail before from my memory. And in normal circumstances, sure. But given the fact that you're engaged and you are now with the direct competitor, what would be the more prudent action? Just, I'll wait for you while the Uber comes, but I surely shouldn't. I've already pressed the envelope far enough. I shouldn't take you to your house. Well, we're also hearing, at least in the edit, there's another lie, because he lied by omission by saying he didn't go to her house. And, well, is that what we're hearing?
It turned out to be like 4:30 in the morning at that point, and she was going to get an Uber, and I was like, how far away do you live? She was like 8 minutes away. So I was like, cool, I'll just drive you home. No big deal, whatever. So literally drove her there. We talked for a few more minutes, and I just left.
Yeah. So a couple things. One, stop lying. I'm always saying this. Stop lying. Face the music and deal with reality. If you made a mistake, if you feel guilty or ashamed, it's better to live in truth than to add another thing to be ashamed about, and also another reason for everyone to hate you. And one reason for everyone to not trust a single thing you say. If he were a friend of mine, or particularly a partner or a family member, having seen this scene, I would say, wow, so push comes to shove, you just straight up lie, by omission or otherwise. So that's good to know. Duly noted. Mental note, don't trust anything that Jeramey says that could be something regarding preserving his self-esteem or his image or getting what he wants. In kindergarten, they taught us this. Maybe preschool. Stop lying. Don't lie. So that my second point is that when people cheat or even just do something that they know is wrong or will cause a negative reaction in somebody, they almost always, particularly when they cheat, they will almost always only tell part of the truth. And whenever I am working with couples that are recovering from infidelity, one of the big speeches that I repeat to the cheater is I'll just say it as if I'm saying to Jeramey. And Jeramey would be hiring me, so I'm not just coming on off the street, stopping to pet Layla and then going after Jeramey without consent. He's hiring me. So I'd say, okay, and I would get the goal. If the goal is to recover, he wants to earn trust, then I would say, Jeramey, there's a pretty good chance that already you have only told, because usually by the time they get in my office, they were usually discovered, and then the cheater will reveal some things. Okay. So I say, Jeramey, I don't know exactly what you've told your partner, but there's a pretty good chance that you have minimized some of the truth. I don't know that, but that's generally what happens. Usually people have a reason behind that, which is that they have already hurt their partner and they don't want to hurt them more by telling them the whole story. Another reason is you might think that it's not really important to know every single detail. And you might feel like it might even be kind of like private information, the specifics of the sexual act or something like that. If the person you were cheating with told you something in confidence, or, it gets weird. So almost always the cheaters will lie by omission or just straight up lie. It almost always happens. And almost always what happens in addition to that is that the cheater will be found out that they are lying. So not only did they cheat and lie during the whole incident, however long it took, but then once you cross that threshold into recovery and you've admitted that you did it or you got caught, and the idea is, okay, now's the time to rebuild trust. The cat's out of the bag. There's no reason trying to obscure anything, really. The truth must now prevail. In fact, you have to default to truth. You have to be overly truth. If you're going err on the side of being too truthful, then holding things back. Now, when your partner asks you specific questions, tell me how many times did you do it in our bed this particular night? Did you do it with them? Or was it only with one person? Okay, generally speaking, if you can, just tell the truth and face the music. It's not going to be pretty. Your partner is going to be learning about another detail. It might make it worse for your partner, but little tip, it's already bad. So a little worse is like adding 1 grain of sand to a beach. So it's not like you're adding double the pain. You want to seriously consider just telling the truth. If you can't, or you're unsure, and you're thinking, I don't know if I want to say this, you have two choices. You can either lie, which is what you probably have an impulse to do and what most people do, and you're used to doing because you lied while you were cheating. Your other option is, if you don't want to say it, is to say, I'm sorry right now, I can't say that. Okay, so when you say, I'm sorry right now, I can't answer that question, your partner's going to be pissed off. But it's better than lying. Even if you never get found out for the lie, it will rot your soul. So not like religiously, but the pattern and the habit and the guilt and the shame and the distance and the having to remember the lies, it throws a wrench into the gears of your intimacy. In order for you to be open with your partner and to have a free-flowing love between the two of you, you can't have this constant editor in your mind of make sure you don't counteract or, counter a lie that you said earlier. So, let's practice. Now, your partner is going to be upset if they ask a question and you say, I'm sorry, right now I can't answer that question. Now, I turn to the victim and I say, you're free to be upset about that, but we'd rather have Jeramey in those shoes than lying. So I think we can all agree that's a far superior response than just lying. It's not great, but the whole thing isn't great. If he answers the question, you're also going to feel like shit because it's hurtful, it's awful. So I have all that kind of conversation. And I suppose I would apply it to even non-infidelity moments, although you could argue that this is on the infidelity spectrum for sure, right? Even if his intentions were good, which I don't know, obviously, it certainly doesn't look that way. And I'll contend again that he did this almost, he capitalized on the moment to do something that would cause Laura to break up with him, because he either subconsciously or consciously doesn't want to be with Laura and just wanted it to end. It's just my best guess, because it's just such a colossal. If let's just say in a universe he was totally in it to win it, and maybe he was a little ambivalent, but there was no indication of that. All indications were he was in it to win it. Although the whole time I'm like, there's something off about this guy. And seeing the infidelity, it just like starts to make everything look like it makes more sense, because it looked like he didn't care about Laura. And then to see him treat Laura like, now there's another chance that he's a psychopath. I'll talk about that. I doubt it. It's a rare condition, but what the internet will call a sociopath, and increasingly what clinicians will start using that word too, which is not enjoyed by me. The reason why is because we have antisocial personality disorder, which is laid out in the DSM, our diagnostic manual, and then we have two other constructs, sociopathy and psychopathy. And the construct of psychopathy actually has a lot of literature and research and measures on how to measure it. And for many, it is different from antisocial personality. And so there are those two constructs. They're very related and correlated, but they're slightly different according to many. And we have a robust decades of research and literature and practice, standards of practice. And then we have this third, distant third idea called sociopathy, or being a sociopath. It is discussed in the literature over the past number of decades, but far less, and especially more recently in psychologist circles regarding assessment and evaluation. It's just not, plus it's not particularly a useful concept because, well, I won't go into it. Anyway, like the internet and the public are going to bastardize our words, but for clinicians, I came up in this field prior to the internet really existing. At least it wasn't really in operation in 1995 in the way that it would eventually become. And I didn't know anything about anything. And so my professors taught me everything. Now I have students that I have to spend months deprogramming all the bullshit that they've internalized from TikTok. It's maddening. It's like we need another year of graduate school to just deprogram their head from. And of course, they're interested because they've probably been interested in psychology for a long time. So they go on TikTok and it starts feeding them that through the algorithm, and it brainwashes them to believe things that don't even make any sense. I had yesterday, well, I won't go into the details, but a defense lawyer actually contacted me and wanted to consult about a case, and she said that her client was semi-evaluated by another clinician as having narcissistic personality disorder, and she wanted my opinion about it, and she actually wanted to hire me to help defend the client. I don't have time for that right now, but I took a little bit of an assessment, and my opinion based on what she was telling me was her client doesn't show really any of the signs of narcissistic personality disorder. And I'm wondering where this other clinician got it from. I don't know, but it just seems like another clinician out there that has been miseducated by the internet. Anyway, and it matters, because if anyway, so for him, maybe so psychopaths, one, are not like the way they're depicted in the media. They're not geniuses typically. They have the normal bell curve of IQ, meaning that the average is around 100, meaning that half of them have an IQ below 100. And it's not exactly like that, but the point is that it runs the gamut. And I say this because psychopaths have a disorder of their behavior, which is, it derives from their personality and likely their relational traumas. So these individuals, psychopaths, people with antisocial personality disorder, are a train wreck. They are frequently shooting themselves in the foot, meaning that they're not geniuses like in the movies where they're constantly scheming and they're pulling the, like that TV show You. I think it's on Netflix. Do those people exist? Yeah, but I've never come across them. 100% of the time, in my anecdotal experience, when I come across a psychopath and someone with antisocial personality disorder, they just make mistake after mistake after mistake. And part of that is that they never developed a sense of empathy and noticing how other people feel and really caring about it. A lot of our behavior is based on that. Like when I am, a simple thing. Let's say I'm 20 years old and I don't have a lot of money. This was true. And I am with my roommates in college and someone leaves their wallet out. And I could even see a $20 bill and I could really use that $20 bill. But I don't want to take it because even if I could get away with it, it just doesn't feel good to take from anybody, let alone a friend, even though I really need that money, even though I know my friend has a lot of excess money that they don't really need. But it's so far from my mind to do something like that. Well, to a psychopath, someone with antisocial, that just doesn't occur to them. And they just yoink. And they do that over and over again. They have no friends. They don't have a job. They get fired. They might even just go headlong into the third side of a love triangle without even thinking about what is going to happen from that. And of course, when they are confronted, they also don't care. Even though they kind of did want the original relationship, it just doesn't occur to them. And they, after a lifetime of this, will tell people like me once they land in my office, I don't understand why my life is such a train wreck. I'm constantly getting in trouble, and help me with this. And so that's the lever with psychopaths, is that therapy can help them to stay out of trouble. It's a self-preservation act, right? Learning how to have empathy, learning how to account for other people's feelings, because for many, it's just a blank spot and they're just constantly shooting themselves in the foot. It doesn't look like that to me. I suspect that, I don't know. Because even if he was not really in the relationship, we don't usually see this amount of sabotage, self-sabotage. We've seen other people, or at least I thought we were seeing other people are like, I don't think they're still in the relationship. We don't usually see this. It just seems, it just runs the gamut. My top hypothesis is that he has some kind of problem that resulted in him being unable either to face within himself or face outside of himself a conflictual situation. It also could be passive aggression. There was a little bit of talk about how he didn't like how Laura was getting on his case about a number of things, including the Hawaiian shirts. And I didn't talk about that in the moment, but it did seem a little over the top. So one thing and this often happens on this show, where the women will really just lay into the men about the way they dress or their apartment. It seems to be just this obvious behavior that they're supposed to do as women, and the men are often fine. And, reverse the genders. It doesn't always work out that way because there's obviously a power imbalance in our society, so it's not an exact analogy. But just as a thought experiment, imagine if we had a third of the men throughout the seasons just frequently ridicule or comment or say, well, that's got to change. You're not going to dress like that. Just imagine a man saying to a woman, that outfit, that's got to go. You're constantly, no, that's just not going to work, right? Now, of course, often for men will come from body shaming or objectification of some kind. For women, it usually comes from a different place of your fashion makes you look like a dork or something. You know, it's a different kind of place, but it's a similar thing. And it always tweaks me because that's not the world I live. I don't live in a world where those kind of gender assumptions or behaviors are the norm. So he was talking about how that bothered him, and so that it could be a passive aggression. He has some hostility towards her. He exhibits no overt hostility towards her. He's very verbally accommodating. You know, when he apologized at the beach, he's just like, immediately, it's all my fault. I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have done that. I'm the jerk. And I wonder if he has buried all of his anger and the only way it can come out is through these passive, hostile ways. I don't know.
Happened, here's the chain of events, all that stuff. And the conversation didn't go well at all.
You're lucky it wasn't me. Because you wouldn't have just walked in the door. I'd have been sitting there waiting for you.
Yeah, it's interesting. Often the family members are, fairly biased, which is good. You want your support system to be, you want your support system to like you and to prefer you. But I don't want my support system to delude me. It doesn't help me to have people close to me just go along with something that I'm doing that is destructive to others and to myself. But often that is the case. It's sort of like when Laura and Jessica were talking about their respective love triangles and, the selective morality involved of just like, I can't believe Sarah, you reached out to Jeramey, and then when it comes to Jess reaching out to Jimmy, it's just like, oh yeah, that's wonderful. I think that's a great idea. So, it happens, but I don't think it's a good thing. I really do think it doesn't serve anybody. Now, do you just sit there and confront everyone on every hypocrisy? It depends on what you're going to do. But I like people like that because I don't know, I trust them better, especially if I want to ask their advice, right? But anyway, yeah. So the mom is saying, it makes sense what Laura did. And if it were me, I would have been far more harsh to you about that.
I was having a good conversation. It was a constructive conversation.
But she doesn't know that.
She
She's
doesn't.
at home, laying in bed, waiting for you to come home, knowing that you went out drinking with the guys.
Now, didn't realize I was going to potentially lose a fiance over that.
Okay, so at the beginning of all this yammering, I was wondering what we would see regarding his humanity, and we are seeing no difference in his tone, in the things he's saying, other than he's revealing more information that he appeared not to have told her originally, that he lied by omission to Laura. So that's not a good sign. I was hoping that he would say, I feel so bad, I don't know what I was doing, or I had this, thing. I felt so bad to Sarah, and Sarah was really crying a lot. I didn't know what to do, just something. But from the way it looks, it's just like, yeah, whatever. And then even that statement, I didn't know I'd lose a fiance. Well, anyway, what's on TV?
Well, I could have told you that, but you didn't call me.
Wasn't planned. It wasn't like, oh, this is what I'm going to go do tonight. I'm going to go fuck up and have fun.
And even that, let's rewind that, because just think about the way he's wording that. I fucked up. No, you didn't fuck up. You made a lot of choices consciously to do all that and to not do certain things. Like you didn't turn around and go home. You didn't leave when everyone else was leaving the bar. You didn't call or text your fiance, or apparently even think about her, or even your engagement, right? Or you did. I mean, so, right. So either he just didn't even think about Laura, or he did and decided to do all this anyway. Either option means that, Laura should definitely not be with him because, I don't know. It's hard to say, but yeah, given everything we're seeing, it just, and again, other couples, other people have seemingly been transitioning to saying, I don't want to be with this person, but they're not really revealing it yet. But they don't treat the Lauras on this show like that. They just get cold, think Bartice. I remember him. I organized all my notes just so I could be able to do something like this. We had Bartice and Nancy, and I suspected that at the very least Bartice, and seemingly just Bartice, because Nancy seemed kind of blindsided at the wedding itself, that Bartice, weeks before the altar, had decided for the most part that he wasn't in it. And he didn't do something like this, or if he did, he hid it. Do you know? He's not even, Jeramey's not even, he's not even trying, right? So, yeah. But let's rewind that and hear what he said here.
Wasn't planned. It wasn't like, oh, this is what I'm going to go do tonight. I'm going to go fuck up and have fun.
Well, I didn't plan it. It's like, well, okay, we'll take your word on that. You could have planned it because God knows. But, okay, you didn't plan it, but you did it. When people have this perspective, they're talking like, well, I didn't plan on tripping over that invisible wire across the road and fall on my face and break my nose. I don't know why there's an invisible wire in this story, but there is. And you didn't plan on that. And how could you avoid it? Because you were walking down a road and then there's an invisible wire. Maybe it's a James Bond movie. I don't know. So yeah, you didn't plan on it. But it doesn't have anything to do with planning. You did it. You had time to think about it. He even said, they texted him, Sarah's here, and he thought about it and thought, maybe I shouldn't go there. But then he said, I'm not going to let Sarah dictate my behavior. And then he says here, I didn't plan on having fun. I didn't plan on having fun. That's a weird reframe of the narrative, right? What are you talking about? I just had fun.
It sucks.
I know, you really, you told me you loved her, and you don't say that about people and talk about relationships like you have. Mm-hmm. The few times I've talked to you, you've just been really excited.
Yeah, he seems like he's just talking about a football game that he watched on TV and his team lost or something. It's just totally devoid of emotion. I'll hold out for the possibility that he has a lot of emotion about a lot of these things, but he just isn't good at expressing it. That has been consistent. We haven't seen, to my memory, we haven't seen any expression of humanity or depth. The only kind of emotion we saw from him was when he was a little upset at the party about the bean dip thing, and then all of his jokiness, right? So, yeah, I wonder if, because he did talk about, and who knows if it's true, but I don't think there's a reason to disbelieve it, to not believe it. But after the bean dip thing, he went to the room and he said he was really, really angry at himself and he felt ashamed. He almost left that night. And then you think, well, was he not really even invested then? And his almost leaving that night, which was, I think, day 2 or something of the getaway after having met Laura. I don't know. Either way, he is not an advisable choice to marry at this point.
So I don't know if I'm going to have a daughter-in-law or not. You've always got Layla.
Well, and then she says, I don't know if I have a daughter-in-law or not. Does that mean that the engagement isn't officially off? Are we going to have to watch these two go to the altar? Don't put us through that. That's at the very least boring, if not excruciating.
She's a pack rat. The second thing is, She's a pack rat. The third thing is she's a pack rat. Other than the daily nagging and stuff, I love her to death. We get along fine.
Other than the daily nagging, other than the fact that, according to my perception, she nags me all the time, we get along just great. I don't know, maybe he's joking. It seems like it's all lighthearted, but it sort of came at me because, you know, she's a pack rat, she's a pack rat, she's a pack rat. And you're thinking, well, you know, on the scale of complaints about your partner, that's pretty low stakes for most people. So I'm thinking, oh, that's nice. And then he just, and then aside from the daily nagging. But anyway, we're doing really good. I don't know. Jimmy's family seems real cute. All right, well, that does it for that episode. Everyone, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.